Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or whatever it might be for you. So I am still in Estes Park. This is Estes Park, Colorado. Rocky Mountain National Park, Rocky Mountains. It's a little bit chilly today, and it's supposed to rain real soon. So I didn't do any hiking or anything like that. Did some work this morning. Website things and other things. So I'll start this Facebook Live with a story. I like telling stories, and for the most part, people seem to be pretty receptive to the stories I tell. So when I first got to Estes Park, and Estes Park is the town, the small town that leads into the Rocky Mountain National Park. It's weird because it says Estes Park, so people, when they get here, they expect there to be like Ferris wheels and rides and stuff like that, so they're a little bit disappointed when they find out it's just a town. It's just the town that people live in on their way to the Rocky Mountains. I don't do a really good job of waiting for people to enter the Facebook Live, so if you rewatch this and everything, then that's cool with me too, but I felt really inspired to share this message. I believe in the law of attraction in terms of it being a principle of the universe. The law of attraction is not something that any one person can patent, copyright. If they write about it, it doesn't belong to them. Gravity is a principle. If you drop a pen, it will fall. This is a principle of nature that we are subject to. And it's very observable, and we can learn to work with these principles. And I'm going to prove, hopefully, that the law of attraction is applicable to every single facet, every single detail, every single little piece of your life, of anybody's life, of our existence in this form. So that's how we know that we're working with the principles. So I'm going to talk a little bit about parenting. So I got into Estes Park. I can't even remember now. The days all mixed together. I'm not a big time watcher, things like that, but I was sleeping in a tent for at least a few days, and my tent was right next to a playground. And this is where I got the inspiration to do this Facebook Live for you guys. So there's a lot of things that people talk about in terms of law of attraction, you know, of course, manifesting money, manifesting partners, manifesting the life that we really desire. But there are parents out there, and they want things from their kids. They want things for their kids. They have desires for their children. And this is the same thing. So we're going to be talking about a very similar format because these principles are applicable to everything. So I'm sitting in my tent, and it's, I don't know, afternoon, and I'm right next to a playground. My tent is next to a playground, so I can hear all the children outside playing, and I have to admit, it was really interesting listening to the children play. There was one boy, and his name was Willow. And of course they don't know that I was listening, but my tent was right there. What can I do? I was just laying there and reading, and you know, I heard what they were saying. But it was really exciting what they were doing. They were looking for magic mushrooms. Of course, there were no mushrooms. They were using their imagination, or maybe there were mushrooms, I don't know. I just assumed that they were using their imagination, and they were playing, and they were having a lot of fun, and they were chasing each other around, and you know, it felt good to listen to that. It's just really fun to hear kids be kids and really enjoy themselves. And then their parents came. And when the parents came to collect their children, it was a totally different story. From the very beginning, I heard the parents using control words. And I honestly looked out of my tent because I wasn't sure if they were talking to animals or if they were talking to the children. I seriously could not tell if they were giving commands to a dog or if they were talking to their children. So this made me think about how I parent, because I don't judge other people in their parenting styles, but when I see something, I evaluate my own experience. When somebody's driving poorly, I don't think about them driving poorly, I just evaluate my driving. And that's how I go introspective, but I don't really judge other people. But here's the thing. The parents were using control words. So in a matter of 2 minutes, I heard stop, don't, get down, get away, you can't. So it was the parents who were projecting their limited beliefs, their limited ideas of what they can do, what they can't do. And it was funny to me a little bit, because there was one family and they came to collect their child and they're like, it's time to camp, let's go put up our tent. And the kid's like, no, I want to play. And then the parents are like, what? You don't want to put up the tent? It's tent time, it's camping time, let's go do that. So basically the parents had their idea in their head when they went camping, and they had this image and this vision of what camping would be like. And they imagined them maybe putting up the tent with their kid and laughing and doing all of these different things, but the child wasn't interested in that. The child just wanted to play. And the parents forced the child to go do what they wanted the child to do. That's interesting. I found that really interesting. And then that made me reflect on my own parenting style. So, I'm 37 years old. My son is 17. He'll be 18 in March. He'll be graduating from high school this year. And I just want to share how I parented. So this is the thing. I don't just talk theory and hypothesis. I don't tell people, what they should or what they shouldn't do. But I will give examples. I'll give examples from my experience on some of the things that I have done. And it's really important, Shayna also would probably chime in on a lot of this, because, parenting takes two, right? So I hear the parents, I hear them attempting to control their children, and hi. So it's just a quick Facebook Live on parenting in terms of law of attraction, because this is a topic that I hear nothing about, but we want our kids to be happy. We want our kids to be healthy. We want our kids to be productive. We want our kids to be successful. We want, these are desires. What do we do when we desire something? So I'm just explaining another way, another approach, or maybe just, giving some people some ideas on other ways to approach their children in terms of law of attraction, because we have desires around our kids, and that makes perfect sense. So the parents at the campground, they came, they collected their children, they were using control words. It was don't, stop, you can't, cut that out, slow down, do this, do that. And then the children also changed, because I could hear both. So I could hear them when they were talking to their parents, and then I could hear them again when they were just playing with their friends and they were having fun. So I could see both. And I found it really fascinating how fast the children changed. They accommodated their minds instantly to their parents and their control dramas and the tenseness that their parents were coming across. And that imagination, that flow of play and excitement that the children were just having was gone. In just an instant, the children, their entire world shifted from, oh, this is so fun, and this is joy, and this is imagination, to control, to everything that the parents were projecting onto them. So my son's 17 now, and some of the things that I'm going to say, some people will be like, no, that never works, that won't work. I have never punished my son. So I have never spanked him, I have never yelled at him, I have never hit him, I don't remember ever sending him to his room, I don't remember ever grounding him. I took a different approach, because I saw the way that I had been parented, and I saw the way that other people were parenting, and I just thought about the rules of the universe that we're talking about in terms of law of attraction, in terms of balance is power, in terms of freedom. Because I want to be free, and I want my son to be free. I want him to have this very free spirit. I want him to go through life loving and feeling and connecting, and that's my desire. So to cultivate that desire, I matched my intention and my feeling with that desire. Good morning. So I'm just doing a Facebook Live on parenting in terms of law of attraction. So what I don't want, or what I do want, what my desires are for my son, are some of the same desires that I have for myself. But I didn't use control. I didn't force. I set the example. And from that example, I inspired to motivate. Now, is he eating as healthy as me? Is he, is he just like me? Of course not. He's manifested into his own unique person in his own unique way. But I led by example. I showed him that there's another way to live, there's another way to think, there's another way to act, and there's another way to parent. There's another way to do things. So I never controlled my son. How can I attract my desire of him being free and him being what I find important and what I think is valuable? How can I instill that by using force? How can I force that onto him? And I think a lot of people have seen this before, right? A lot of people have seen when parents want to control their children. So I've seen this a lot. So I had a girlfriend, and she was I don't know, maybe we were like 15, 16 years old, and she was very controlled. And all she wanted to do was exactly what her parents told her not to. They were manifesting, the parents, were helping to create the conditions to manifest exactly what they don't want, because the parents were worrying. The parents were so concerned. And so the parents attempted to use control. So this is something that I teach. I have given up control. I have given up trying to control other people. And in some ways, I applied this to my son. So first of all, how is my son turning out? He's 17 years old. He's never been in trouble with the law. He skipped school a couple times, but usually with my permission, because I'm cool with that sort of thing. He's such a great young man. He's so smart and so caring. Sometimes he says just the right thing, does just the right thing. I mean, he's an amazing young man. He has his own mind. He knows what he wants to do, to some extent, because this can be a confusing time for him because he's, looking at university and college and things like that. But he is such a unique person, and it wasn't because I shaped him or I controlled him or I put him into a box. I allowed him to be free. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about allowing. I allow for myself, and I also allow for other people to be their unique self. And that was the same with my son. So I never tried to control him. I never tried to say, you can do this, you can do that. So I started eating healthy. So what I've seen a lot of parents do when they start eating healthy is they try forcing it on their children. And typically when you try to force something onto such a young and free mind, they immediately start rebelling. They immediately start pushing back. And this is my thesis. My entire thesis is that we don't need to use force, that we can inspire to motivate, that we can work together and we can lift each other up. And these are the same principles of law of attraction. So rather than placing my mind on what I don't want, I didn't do that. If I were to do that, it would only manifest what I don't want. And I would only be indoctoring these worry dramas and these control dramas into my son. And he would be picking up on that, because we know that children are like sponges. They just take it all in. Their mind is just, they have so much space and they're so free that they can learn and they can do so much unencumbered. And it seems like a lot of parents are doing their best to encumber them. It seems like rather than learning from our children, we are convinced that they must learn from us. But I don't think that's true. I think learning is a give and take. It's all about energetic exchange. I've learned so much from my son. I've learned so much. I can give example after example after example of where we have learned from each other. And he is such a free spirit. He's such a free mind. He does what he wants to do, but because he followed my example, he has similar values. He doesn't go out drinking. He doesn't, as far as I know. I mean, I guess every parent wants to say that about their kids, but maybe Shayna can chime in. Kobe is a very good young man. He is very smart. He scored really good on his SATs. He's really excited about, maybe getting a certification or just going to a 4-year university. He's really interested in languages. But all of the dumb shit I did when I was young, a lot of it was coming from my parents because of the way that they were trying to control me. So this is a fundamental principle of law of attraction. If you are worrying about something, if you are fearing about something, and you are projecting that onto your children, they will take that worry, they will take that fear, and before you know it, they're focusing on lack, they're focusing on worry, they're focusing on anxiety, they're focusing on all the same dramas that Abraham is trying to teach us how to get ourselves out of. So there are a lot of parents who are transferring their dramas onto their children, right? And it's a common thing. I see it all the time. It's because there's a lack of awareness. They don't understand the principles, and it's maybe the way that they were raised. So it's just one control drama being passed on to another control drama and another control drama. But we didn't do that. I didn't do that. So with my son, I didn't make him play sports. I didn't make him play an instrument. I practiced Kung Fu. What would be, I would love it. I would love it if my son came up to me and said, Dad, one day, I would really like to learn Kung Fu. I mean, that's available if he ever wants to learn, but I've never forced him. I want him to have his own mind. I want him to have his own dreams. I want him to be his own unique self. And I cannot get there. That's my desire, right? My desire is for him to be free, to be unique, to be wonderful, to apply the principles without even understanding that they're principles, because he sees me applying them. So this would not work if I didn't lead by example. So if I was a parent who said, don't smoke, but can you pass me my cigarettes? That's not going to work. It's not. No matter what you do as I say, but not as I do is not an effective technique. It will not work. And so here's another thing that people want to do with their kids. They want to, hi Melissa, I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day, a little bit chilly in the Rockies, so I have my coat on. It's going to be the coldest this weekend, I think, for a few more weeks. But yeah, I see we're getting some people in. Angela, hello. Shayna's in here, hello. So what a lot of parents do is they take their worries, they take their anxieties, they take their frustrations, and they dump them on their kids. And their kids are like sponges, so they're going to take that in. And then before you know it, they're 20, they're 30, they're 40, and they're trying to unlearn. Right? We talk about the Matrix. We talk about all of this programming and all of these, catchphrases that people love to use. But what are parents doing if not contributing to that? Because they're afraid. They're focusing on lack. They're focusing on their own dramas. And it's not completely necessary. And as I said, though, the key ingredient, though, is leading by example. If I want to inspire somebody to motivate, because I can't motivate another human being. That's impossible. I can't motivate you. I can't motivate anybody. I couldn't motivate my son. But what I could do is I could lead by example, and I could inspire him. Christy, hello. So good to see you. I feel a lot of love, and I really appreciate this group. And this was something that I felt really inspired to share. Because it's a very important subject, and it's something that I've done differently. It's something that I don't know if a lot of people could come in and say the same thing that I applied, and it was a team effort, of course, but we applied the law of attraction and the principles of the universe in parenting. I did not force my worry, I did not force my lack onto my child, because that influences their thinking. If we are telling our children what they can't do, or what they must do, or what to be worried about, or what to be anxious about, we're taking them away from the principles. We're pulling them away from the principles. And it's so ironic to me that parents want to assume that they are so much above their children, that psychologically, intellectually, spiritually, everything, I'm above my child. Holy shit, that's not true. Oh my God, that's so false. Listen to children. So if you get a group of children together, let's say one's black, one's white, one's Asian, one's whatever color, whatever ethnicity, they will play. They will have fun. They will find joy. They will find love. It's only when we program them as parents and as a society, when we program our children, when we force our children, when we put these control dramas onto our children, they respond to that. However, if we allow them to be free, if we lead by example, if we ask them questions to get them thinking, if we don't focus on lack, if we don't focus on worry, and instead inspire them. I asked my son, so what do you want to be? What's your thoughts right now? Tell me your vision. So I'm not telling him how the law of attraction works. You know, of course I want him to visualize so he can find that feeling, but I'm not going to tell him that. I don't need to. Of course I will later, or I'll introduce it to him later and he can take it or leave it. I'm not going to force him. When I was studying religion, I never forced the religion on him. When I was studying different things, you know, when I started learning the teachings of Abraham, when I started learning the principles of Kung Fu and everything else, I didn't force it. I never forced it onto him. But the biggest thing that I see people doing is they are taking their own worries. They are taking their own fear, and they are taking their own focus on lack, and they are throwing it onto their children. They're just throwing it at them. So for example, let's say my lack, I constantly focus on maybe my lifestyle. Let's say, just for example, this is a hypothetical situation, but I've seen it before. So let's say I grew up very poor. So I know what it's like to be poor, but now I don't want my children to do that. So I'm just going to force into their mind and constantly drive this point home to them that, you know, you shouldn't be poor, you shouldn't be this, you shouldn't be that, you can't be this, don't be that. These are all control words, and all we're doing is we're lowering the vibrations of our children. So how often do parents interact with their kids and they're just lowering their vibration? They're not talking to them from a place of respect or a place of equal. And I have noticed in my experience, when I do that, I get a much better response. So let's say my son does something that just isn't the smartest, or it wasn't the wisest decision in that moment. I don't just tell him, and I don't just say, you know, God damn it, don't do this and don't do that and go to your room. I don't parent out of fear. I don't parent out of anger. What am I teaching my son if I do that? What am I teaching my son if he can push me to the point that I would inflict violence or even violent words? What does that show about me? What does that show about my application of the principles that I'm trying to not necessarily preach, but introduce in a very relaxed way? Because I'm all about teaching in a relaxed way. So I was raised in a very different way than my brothers, because my mom tried to use control with my brothers. So she would spank them, and she would ground them, and you know, she would do all of these things. And with me, though, she decided to just say, hey, I'm going to let him do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And maybe I didn't do as good as my son with that. Okay, so I'll just say that right now. She let me, you can't share it because it's in the Abraham Hicks Vortex group. I'll upload this to my website, and then that will make it shareable. And then also very soon I'm going to be doing a lot of videos from my own Facebook group. And then that can be shared in a bunch of different groups. But that's another story. It will be shareable from my website soon. But thank you for your interest. I'm glad that you wanted to share this message. So meditation. I love meditating, and I love these spiritual things. And I'll post a picture later of where my son was meditating. We went to Arizona and he meditated. And he has this perfect posture, and it's over this beautiful canyon, and it's just fucking wonderful. I love it. But I didn't force him to. I never said, son, you must meditate like dad because this is this and this is... No, I didn't use control. Do I worry about my son? I don't. I really don't. He's his own young man. He's smart, he's energetic, he is innovative, and he makes really good decisions. So there's no need for me to throw my worries and my anxiety onto my son. So here are just some tips. Let's take the very basics of law of attraction and figure out how we can work with our children in that way. So one, let's just talk about higher and lower vibrations. How often when we are interacting with our children are we lowering their vibrations? I mean, just think about it. This is just something personal for the parents out there. When you are interacting with your kids, fundamentally what are you doing? Are you making them feel good, or are you making them feel bad? Are you trying to control, or are you allowing them to be free? My son's 17 years old right now. Yep, he'll be 18 in March. He's a senior in high school, if you can believe that. I'm a young man, but he's a younger man. And in those 17 years, he's never been arrested. He's never come home drunk. He's never been through a lot of these dramas. He's a very free and happy young man. I mean, he just does what he does, and When he wants advice, he asks for advice, and he picks up on things. So he's already starting to eliminate soda from his experience. I've never told him not to drink soda. I never said you must not drink soda. It's raw, it's bad for you. But he sees that because I don't drink soda, I feel better. I wake up better. I want to do cartwheels as soon as I wake up in the morning. You know, I'm staying with some people here, and they're just so amazed that when I wake up, I feel great. You know, and they're like, you know, a lot of people when they wake up, you don't talk to them for the first 45 minutes or an hour until they have their coffee. I'm not like that. You know, when I wake up, I'm ready to go. You know, it's another beautiful day. I'm alive. I feel love. I feel energy. I feel connection. And I want to run with that, right? So these are the things that are important to me, and my son sees them. And he's able to evaluate for himself because he's smart. Children are amazing. Listen to children. Why are we trying so fucking desperately to make them like us? How does that even make sense? I won't talk for 2 hours. I'm sorry. I think I'm getting to the gist of this, but I just wanted to give some pro tips. So the pro tip number 1, are you raising or lowering your child's vibration? Let's say they've done something wrong. Really try to think, how can I speak to my child? How can I interact with my child in a way that will raise their vibration rather than lowering it? How can I talk to my children without trying to control them? Because nobody wants to be controlled. We don't like that. Anytime somebody is trying to control another person, they can feel it, and we tense up, and we don't like it. We don't like being changed. We don't like people trying to control us. So that's one pro tip. When you are talking with your child, simply evaluate, am I raising or lowering my child's vibration? And I see what you're saying. Some children do not need close supervision. Others need more guidance. That could be true because they're coming from a different point. But if this was something that was applied from the very beginning, it can be very powerful. And of course, there's all kinds of variables that you can throw in there. But what is your role? You can only control what your role is. So if you are trying to control every experience of your child, you're not letting them be free. You're not letting them be their own person. You're not letting them make their own mistakes. Yes, I can teach my son that if you touch a hot pan, it's going to hurt like hell. He may need to touch that pan, and when he does, I don't care. You know, I'll take him to the doctor and whatever. It's him. It's something that he needs to deal with. He must be his own entity. And so pro tip number 1, when you speak with your children, evaluate, am I raising or lowering their vibration? So let's say your child's done something wrong. It's something that you've told them time and time again not to do. When you yell at them, when you hit them, when you use these control words, you're lowering their vibration. Do you expect a child to learn from a low vibration when we have fundamentally learned not to operate in that way from a low vibration? Now, good things can come from low vibration if you have momentum. There are a lot of beautiful things that can come from low vibration. The lowest vibration, there's really, and I say lowest even though we're talking about an infinite spectrum, but I have to use words to convey ideas. So let's say a really, really low level of vibration. That's called rock bottom. And from rock bottom, the only way is up. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's a learning opportunity. It's a building opportunity. It's a strengthening opportunity. So when your child does something that you don't want them to do, why would you throw all of these principles that supposedly you believe in out the window? How does that make sense? Because a lot of people are just trying to manifest cars for themselves or money for themselves. And they're focusing on tidbits rather than the understanding of the principles. That you can have the money, that you can have the car, that you can have the dreams, you can have all of this and still be a part of the complete picture and gain the momentum to live the entire life that you deserve. My life includes my son being happy. My life includes, to the best of my ability, I'll do everything I can. And so that was pro tip number 1. Pro tip number 1 was not to lower your child's vibration and expect them to learn. Don't lower your child's vibration and expect them to have, this great moment of learning, because we know that when we're brought down to that low state, there's not a lot that we can see. You know, our perspective is very low. Our perspective is very narrow. It's only when we're vibrating and we're gaining momentum that we're able to see so much more. Does that make sense so far? So that was pro tip number 1. So pro tip number 2 is do not use control. When you try to control another person, you are going to end up with a tense result. You're going to end up with force meeting force, because kids are too free. They're too open-minded. They haven't been conditioned enough yet. So they don't like it. They don't want you to tell them what to do. Work with them instead. Lead by example. Show them what can be done. You know, my son sees that a person can gain impeccable power. A person can be very strong. A person can be very motivated. A person can be very free and original and alive and energetic because he sees that. I don't need to force him. So pro tip number 1, we talked about not lowering your child's vibration when they're not doing what you expect. Another thing is to maybe change your expectations. They're not going to be like you. They're not. Inside, they're their own unique person. Outside, they're their own unique person. And as much as you want, you cannot force them. Allow them to be free. Allow them to be unique. So pro tip number 1 was not to lower their vibration. Pro tip number 2 was to not use control. As long as we're trying to control our children, trust me, they're doing something behind your back. They're doing something with their friends. They're talking in a certain way because nobody likes to be controlled. I can bet everybody in this group will agree. I don't like being controlled unless it's controlled, but that's something completely different. Maybe I shouldn't even have mentioned that at all. But so most people don't like being controlled in normal circumstances. But so pro tip number 3, don't assume that you are your child's guru. Don't assume that you know all for your child and that you want to shape them and mold them and turn them into the spitting image that you have in your mind. Yes, it is. It was supposed to be rainy today, so I didn't do any long hiking, and it turns out so far so good. But it's supposed to has a 90% chance of raining after 1 o'clock. And where I go, I like to go to the top of things. So there's a high risk of lightning when that happens, and I don't really want to get struck by lightning. So I stay off of places with no trees. Above the tree line, I'm just a beacon for lightning. So I stayed in today, did some work, and now I'm doing this Facebook Live on parenting, pretty much. So pro tip number 3, we were talking, so I've already said not to use control, but number 3 is this erroneous assumption. I think those are raindrops. It's a perfectly blue sky, and yet it's raining. I'm just going to sit here, I don't care. So the pro tip number 3 is that parents often assume that they are the intellectual superior. I've been on this earth longer, you will learn from me. I know all, I see. That is bullshit, and I'm going to call it out. Parents have so much to learn from their children. There's so much to learn. Their minds are so free. Their imaginations are so beautiful. They want to... Everything that Abraham teaches us in any of these seminars, in any of these question and answers, are everything that children are already doing. Who doesn't see? Does anybody else observe this? Is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? I don't want my children to be like me. I want my children, for as long as they can, to really be themselves. I want them to grow. I want them to learn. I want them to become whatever they want to become. How do I do that? One way is by learning. You know, I want to learn from my son. I want to learn from children. So a lot of parents or a lot of adults, when they talk to children, they're towering over them. What I do when I talk to kids is I get down and I look at them eye to eye. I don't use baby talk with a baby, and no offense to anybody who does. I do talk to dogs like that. So I'll talk to a dog and be like, hey, you're cutie. But I don't talk to babies like that. I'll talk to a baby like a human being. How are you? Oh, aren't you cute? You know, I don't want to give them this baby talk. I don't want to try to even control that aspect of their life. Do you see these principles? Like, is it as clear to me, to you guys? Can you guys see at least what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that these principles of law of attraction are just as applicable to what we want from our kids, what our desire is for our children. So I want my child to be successful, however he gauges success. I want him to be happy, however he gauges happiness. I want him to be free, based on however he gauges freedom. And I don't ever want my son or any child to believe that there is this hierarchy. Of course, to some extent, I know more. So I can give you some advice. I can give my son advice. I can give kids advice. I will say, I don't advise you putting that fork in the light socket, because the transference of electricity, you're probably going to get shocked, and it's going to either hurt like hell or you're going to die. That is my advice. And if I see a child doing something, I don't run up. I don't slap their hand. I don't tell them no. I don't use those control words. I talk to them like a normal human being. Now, what do you think will happen if you're running along the edge and you slip and fall? Tell me, what do you think would happen? And then the child will be like, I guess if I'm not paying close enough attention, I could slip, fall, and maybe break a bone or something, and I don't want to do that, so I'll be more careful. Kids are not stupid. They're so intelligent, and they're learning, and they're like sponges, and we can learn so much from children. And so that was pro tip number 3. So just in review, pro tip number 1, I'm hoping I can remember the order that I put them in. And as I say that, I think I've already forgotten. Pro tip number 1, 2, 3... whatever. I try not to control my child. I don't use control words. I don't try to be over them per se. I try to communicate and connect. Why are we forgetting the law of attraction principles in parenting? Why aren't we thinking about connecting with our children? Why aren't we thinking about, like when we talk about soulmates, it's all about energetic connection. We can choose to romanticize that if we want, and then obviously with our children we don't romanticize that type of thing, but what about connection? What about that deep, vibrating connection? Are we connecting when we're telling our kids no, when we're forcing them to do things, when we're sending them to their room out of anger, when we're getting mad at their grades? So this is just an example, and maybe I won't give that example because it's a little bit political. But if I were to see if I were to see some children doing something that they really weren't supposed to be doing, I'm going to ask them, "What are you thinking? Talk to me. Tell me, like, what's going on through your mind? Like, why are you doing these things? Explain it to me, and maybe I can offer some advice, or maybe I can't. I don't know, but it's a different approach." So the law of attraction, if you can teach it to your kids at a younger age, imagine how empowered they will be over their manifesting. So everybody's manifesting. Every single human being on earth is manifesting. And I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. If you make it this far into the Facebook Live, I'm going to give you a spoiler. The purpose of humanity, the purpose of the human being is to create. So people want to know, well, what's my purpose? Your purpose is to create. How do I know that? Because you're doing it whether you like it or not. You're doing it whether you're empowered or not. But we don't want to just create. That's not enough. We want to be an empowered creator. We interject choice. We interject the power of our will. And we can manifest in a way that is really different than the rest of the animal kingdom. That is really different than anything I have experienced. And I love being human, it's a great thing. I love choice. I love making my decisions. I love living with my decisions. Why don't we teach our children this from the very beginning? Why the fuck isn't there a law of attraction class in high school or in junior high? Why don't we teach our kids the principles of the universe? I see a lot of parents who act spiritual and they follow the principles themselves, but then they throw their shit on their kids. They're just constantly throwing shit on them, throwing shit on them, throwing shit on them. After a while, they're just covered in shit. And it's not necessary. And I have an example. My son is not like that. My son is very inquisitive. He's very smart. He says things that just make you like, wow, like, how the hell did you come up with that? That's brilliant. And he's making his changes based on him in his own time. But because he's had me and he's had his mom as an example the whole time, it's worked out really well. And it can work out that way. But another way to do it is just to start today. Start right now examining the principles of law of attraction and whether you are helping this child or not in terms of law of attraction. Are you teaching them the law of attraction by yelling at them? Are you teaching them the law of attraction by lowering their vibrational state? Are you teaching your children the principles of the universe by forcing them into some vocation or telling them what they must do or can't do or forcing all of your ideas and all of your beliefs onto them? What is that? Explain to me how that fits in with any of the principles that we're working with, and I'd love to hear them. So tell me how using control, using force, lowering their vibrational state is in conjunction with the law of attraction. Because I don't see it. So another principle that I apply, yes, conscious parenting. This should be taught in schools. I mean, it should at least be accessible. Why did I have to wait until, I was applying the law of attraction before I used the words law of attraction because it's a principle of the universe. You can find law of attraction in absolutely every single ancient text known to man. They're talking about the same thing. Jesus said, why worry about tomorrow when today has its own challenges? Well, what the fuck is that's the same thing. It's telling me not to worry about tomorrow. Be born again. Every single day you're born again. That means that we're not worrying about the past. Of course, Buddha. Buddha is of course saying all of these things, but they're all saying the same thing. We're all learning that we're conscious creators. And yes, Abraham and The Secret and other avenues have coined the term law of attraction. But these are principles of the universe. It's not the law of attraction. That's just words we're using to describe a phenomena that we're bound to. We don't really have too much choice on that because it's how the universe works. And we are the universe, so it's how we work. It's the way that we work, and we can either work with it or we work against it. One must know themselves as consciousness to be authentic. That is absolutely correct. I must agree with that, Angela. So it's just like if you want to attract a soulmate. If you want to attract a love or a love interest, a lover, you must first work on yourself. You must first love yourself. Everything goes from the inside out. So, Angela, that's what I'm saying in terms of you must lead by example. You must be the light for them to follow. You must be everything that you want them to be. And by that example, it gains authenticity. But if you're just kind of pushing them around and saying this and saying that, then it just doesn't work as well. I honestly say that I've been teaching my 9-year-old son law of attraction for years. I wanted him to have any knowledge, and I didn't when he was 20. Sorry, I'm just reading this. I have to hit more. Yes. Yeah, so your child's meditating with you, they're getting into alignment, and you know what? If you start teaching children this, they're going to catch it faster than most adults will. Because most adults have what? They've accumulated resistance. Children don't have that. If I went to a young person and I said, you know what? You are a powerful creature. You are absolutely beautiful. You are the universe. You are the you are, just as I am the I am. What do you want to be when you grow up? Tell me. How are you going to do it? How does it feel to know that you're going to be president someday? How does it feel to know that you're going to be whatever you want someday? Isn't this a different way of talking to our children rather than saying you must or you can't? These are not power words. So why do we inflict these weakness words, these control words, these control methods onto our children? Because they're far more receptive than we are to these things. So why isn't anybody talking about law of attraction in terms of parenting? I can't explain that. So I'll give you an example. I won't be too specific because this was from me working with somebody, but there was a young man and he wanted to know what happened to him when he died. That is a very serious topic for me to be touching on. But I gave the best answer I could. I gave them the example of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. I told him that the caterpillar can't imagine exactly what it's like to be a butterfly. Just like once the butterfly is a butterfly, it's difficult for it to remember what it's like to be a caterpillar because of metamorphosis. It's a fundamental change on the deepest level. And I gave this young man this example that when we die, the form changes on the very deepest level, and it's okay. You know, if you have a religious belief, that metamorphosis happens in the way that you believe. I have my own systems of belief, sort of. I don't really cling to belief too much either. I do follow the principles set before me of the universe because it's a diagram. I'm going to work with the diagram. I see it so clearly, and I can't wait to share my book with you guys. It's going to be awesome. But I digress. So when we're talking to our children, when we're working with our children, help them understand the law of attraction by, number one, embodying it yourself, being it yourself from the inside out. And then follow the principles with your children. Are we fundamentally raising or lowering their vibrations when we talk to them? Are we trying to exercise control over them, or are we inspiring them to motivate? So what are some other principles of law of attraction? How can we apply this to our children? So when we talk about feeling, oh man, when you talk about visualizing and feeling, can we do it any better than kids? I mean, really. So why do we try to change that? So we have kids. Okay, isn't this ironic? Just think about this for a second. So you have a young kid, maybe 9, 10 years old, and they have this amazing imagination. They can inflict feeling and value as if they were really there. So when they're playing Indians, and when they're playing cowboys, and that's not a good example. Let me use a different example. When they're playing doctor, when they're playing lawyer, I played cowboys and Indians when I was a kid, and I didn't really play. I was the Indian that got tied up by my brothers while I don't want to talk about that, but so, our kids, when they're playing, when they're doing these things, what are we doing? We tell them, no, you must be more adult, you must be more serious. So we're taking them away from the principles of law of attraction so that someday they can learn it again, and then it's an uphill climb, just like it's been for a lot of us, in relearning the law of attraction. So feeling, let them feel. If a child comes to you and tells you they have an imaginary friend, fuck it, let them have an imaginary friend. That's cool. Let them use their imagination in any way that they can, especially if it's invoking good feelings. And all of these ideas that we have, all of our beliefs, all of our the things that we think we know, why are we so desperate to throw that on our children? Why are we so desperate to say that this is this and this is that and it can't go any other way? Are we just transferring our mind to them? How does that work? Like, why are we doing that? What is the point of that? Why are people so desperate to live vicariously through their children? We are all imaginary friends. I like that. That's beautiful. We are all imaginary friends. So the message, so that I'm not here too long. But I love the child's imagination too. And isn't that what Abraham teaches us? Isn't that what a lot of the spiritual teachings teach us, is to laugh and to play and to have fun like children? So our society, American society especially, I'm sorry, I have a hard time speaking outside of my context of understanding, because I don't know if other countries are quite like this, but I can only see what I can see. And I see a lot of control, and I see a lot of conditioning. Everything that we're talking about, like I see a lot of people step out of the matrix and what is this group on? It's this group that is basically everything is a conspiracy theory, yada yada yada, and it all may be true. I don't know, but yeah. Your children are an extension of you. They were their own little beings with their own little hearts, souls, and dreams and manifestations. I agree. So, okay. So I was talking about Anonymous. And basically there's a lot of these groups that say that our minds have been brainwashed, that we are stuck in the matrix, and that we are conditioned. And I agree with just about all of that. But what are parents doing? Are they contributing to that? That's interesting. So we know this as principle, and yet we're contributing to what it is that we want them to be free from later. I don't understand how that makes any sense. So this is my message. The law of attraction is a principle. And I can even stop using the words law of attraction if you want. I don't need to use those words. I don't even need to use the teachings of Abraham. I will talk about the principles of the universe. The teachings of Abraham are beautiful because it's an amazing way to apply it. It's an amazing system. It's not really a system. It's just basically they're explaining the diagram. They give us a way, clear-cut examples to apply the principles of how the universe works and changes. So I really encourage you to talk with your children a little bit about law of attraction, and when you talk to them, show them how it's working for you. Show them how it's working for other people. Show them my video, and maybe that will help. But also, I'm willing to work with children. I'm willing, if parents find value in it, I will explain these things. I have a knack for explaining things, and in my book, I maybe explain a little bit more why and where this came from, but I have a real gift for making things clear, using examples that any mind can understand, because I'm just explaining the same thing in a way that everybody can understand. So when I was talking to this young man about him, becoming from a caterpillar to a beautiful butterfly, he understood that. We didn't need to talk about the specifics of life after death. So I didn't have to give him what... because I didn't know his religion, I didn't know his belief. I'm not going to step on what he believes in. Instead, I gave him an example that would be totally cohesive with what he already believes or doesn't believe. That there's a metamorphosis that happens, and that we become and we transform, and it's very difficult for us to understand what that might be right now, just as the caterpillar has a hard time understanding what it's like to be a beautiful butterfly. Our children are not our own. I agree. But why isn't this something that's being practiced more often? Why isn't this I haven't even heard this in this Abraham Vortex group, or really in any group. Law of attraction in terms of raising our children. Why not? It's because some people, I think, don't yet realize that the law of attraction is a principle of the universe. It applies to everything. If you can figure this out, and this is my warrior training. So what is warrior training? What is the warrior spirit? The warrior spirit is, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And the idea is that we apply the law of attraction, we apply principles in every aspect of our life, and a warrior does that. A spiritual warrior does that. And it's no coincidence that in our history, warriors tended to be the leaders. They tend to be the ones that shift and shape societies and civilizations. So there's no coincidence that happens. And warrior training, the warrior spirit, is this idea of impeccable will and intent. That we are powerful creators, that we are powerful creatures. And we're not victims, we're not weak, we're not what a lot of people want us to believe. So that's really what I have not read Conscious Parenting, but the example that I have is my 17-year-old son, and rather than just pulling from things that I've read or theory or hypothesis or examples from other people, which I can do, I'm very read. So but quite typically I don't quote other people, and I don't really reach out of other people's bags. I like to reach out of my own bag, because I've done these things. Relax and allow. Let's teach our children how to relax and allow, and then we can create a beautiful environment. We can create a beautiful family, and we can change this world. I believe it. That is my longest reach. My longest reach, every day I envision it, is a society, is a world that applies these principles. And every time I imagine it, it's beautiful. Every time I imagine it, it's so uplifting and energizing, and I feel it as if it had really happened. And spoiler alert, that's my mission. As long as I'm here on this earth, I'm going to share what I believe has value. And maybe one day, even after I die, somebody will decide that everything Ernest did was golden, and let's really learn from that. And that's okay. But I do believe I have something to offer, and here I am. I'm offering it for as long as I can, or as long as I want to, really. And I really hope that when we talk with our children, we speak to them from a place of power. Power recognizes power. Look into your child's eyes. Recognize their power as a manifester, as a wonderful, conscious creator. Teach our children. Hello, Heather. So I'm almost done, but feel free to go back to the beginning if you feel inspired to do so. But I'm just talking a little bit about the law of attraction and parenting. So you're going to see a theme from Ernest on this feed until I guess until I'm no longer welcome. I don't know, but I want to offer all of these intricate techniques of how to apply the law of attraction in every aspect of your life. I have applied the law of attraction in business, in my personal relationships, in my parenting, in every single thing that I do. Abraham does have books for children, and I'm not denying that. But what I am doing is offering a personal example. So I have applied the law of attraction in parenting. My son's 17 years old, and I always think about that. When I'm talking to him, am I raising or lowering his vibration? When I talk to him, am I trying to control, or am I allowing him to be his true self? Am I trying to be domineering, or am I, coming down to an equal footing to speak to him as an equal? So Abraham has teachings for books. This stuff's out there. So no, I'm not telling anybody I'm reinventing the wheel. The wheel is the wheel. The principles of the universe are the principles of the universe. You can go and get children's books on all sorts of things. You can get all kinds of spiritual teachers. Dalai Lama, The Art of Happiness. There's all kinds of books that you can read. It's all saying the same shit. Just get what resonates with you. Find what resonates with you. If Abraham resonates with you, then that's beautiful. Then if somebody else resonates with you, then that's beautiful. But what I'm trying to convey is that these are principles of the universe. So if you think that Abraham is the only person to discuss the principles of the universe, you're just not paying attention, because it's everybody. If you really want a 1912 example of the law of attraction before the law of attraction was used, pick up the book by Napoleon Hill called The Law of Success. He is applying the law of attraction. Everything in the law of success is the law of attraction, and they knew it. The great giants of the industry of the United States, Henry Ford, all of the big ones, Rockefeller, they knew the power of collected consciousness. They knew the power of intent, will, manifestation, vibration, how to control, how not to be controlled. Are you kidding? This shit's not new. So anybody who says that it's new, that's fine. You can believe that if you want to, and I'm not here to tell you any different. However, there are many, many other examples, but I do recommend Abraham. I recommend the teachings of Abraham from top to bottom, because it's synthesis. It's all there. So yes, there's children books. I would love to see more people applying these children books. So we have books, right? That's knowledge. That's stuff we put into our brain. So I love using this example because I'm a martial artist. I can read a book about martial arts. And I can tell people that there's books about martial arts, there's books about martial arts, there's books about technique, there's teachers you can read, there's YouTube channels you can watch. That's cool. What about application? So I can read a book about martial arts, but I'm going to get my ass kicked if I don't learn how to actually do it. And that's what Ernest is here to do. I will provide clear-cut examples, clear-cut ways to bridge the gap. There's a lot of books out there that offer one way. And in my experience, there is no one way. Everybody is unique. Everybody is different. The tools that work for me may not work for another person. So affirmation boards. Affirmation boards may work for you. I don't like affirmation boards. I don't like writing a bunch of shit down. I'm a free spirit. I don't like feeling like I have to do something. So instead, I came up with techniques I can do all throughout the day in little ways. I play with my consciousness. I have shifted my consciousness in such a way that I operate from a place of power all the time. I don't check in because I don't check out. I don't need to get in the vortex because I'm never out. I am the fucking vortex. Pardon my language. I get carried away sometimes. I admit. I'm sorry. Yes, just ask me. I'm so great with Q&A, and I think that's sometimes what separates people who have information and people who have genuine knowledge to share, genuine examples to share, are those people who can answer Q&A with examples. So ask me anything, anytime, and I will give you a clear-cut, 100% example of the verbiage, the words, the books, the quotes, and all of these things that are pointers. Words are pointers. Books are pointers. Everything that Abraham tells us is a pointer. It's pointing to the moon, but it is not the moon itself. The way that I work with people is that I help bridge that gap, because everybody's different. We all need to work with what we have to work with. So this is my message, and I hope it was well received. I would love to give more examples. Just send shout outs. I have a lot more Facebook Live topics to give, a whole lot more examples to give, and I'd be happy to give examples of my son. One of the examples I just gave is I love martial arts. It's my thing. It's deep inside of me. However, I don't force my son to do anything that I do. I just give the example, and I encourage him, and I help him understand where the authenticity is in whatever he does. Where is the art in whatever he does? Where is the beauty in whatever he does? Because he can follow the blueprint in his own unique and beautiful way. So that's just one example. I never force my son to say, you must be a martial artist. You know, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because maybe he doesn't want to do that at all. Does anybody have any questions? I would love to hit up a Q&A real quick if anybody wants to throw one down there. I'll hang out for just a second because I like breathing. So, wow, I've gone an hour. So if you do throw some questions in here, I'll answer them at a later time. But I guess that's all I have for right now. I have some really cool topics, law of attraction that I wanted to talk about, other principles of the universe, balance is power. You see that big ball of light out there? That's a perfect example of balance being power. And this is another physical principle of the universe that we have to work with. The universe is fundamentally, perpetually finding balance. Entropy is another form of balance. The way that the universe works are the blueprints and the principles that we have to work with. The accumulation principle of skill is a universal principle that we have to work with. You get best at what you practice most. If you practice being a conscious creator, you're going to get pretty fucking good at it. If you practice being a parent that is teaching their children to use the principles of the universe in a unique and interesting way, in a very free way, you'll get better at that. If you're an asshole every single day, you're going to get pretty good at it. This is the accumulation principle of skill. Yeah, I would love to hear my son's view too, because I haven't, you know, when I talk to my son, I don't use Abraham Hicks. I don't use Eckhart Tolle. I don't use Jesus. I don't use Buddha. I don't use all of the different things that I've used. I just teach him the principles by example, and then I explain them in unique ways without using catchphrases. Because there's much more to understanding than using catchphrases. What do you do with a husband that don't believe this? Okay, so you can't control other people. Again, the only thing that you can do is lead by example. And you can affect other people by sharing your positive vibration. And there needs to be some communication. I do believe in clear communication. So I am a very free spirit, but at the same time I don't want to lie. I don't want to deceive people, because intention is very important. So having a talk with your husband and explaining, just for example, you know, I would need to know a little bit more. You know, that's a very open-ended question. But the number one thing that everybody has to realize, you cannot control another person. You cannot. You can inspire another person, or you can give inspiration to motivate another person, but you cannot control them. I cannot make anybody do anything that they don't really want to do, because you have the power of choice. So one thing I would recommend is really being honest with your husband, explaining what's important to you. And if there's an impasse, you know, then you need to work with that impasse in a way that is in line with the principles. So I could explain that more on a one-on-one basis, because frankly I would need to know more. There's a little bit more detail that needs to be known. But at the same time, follow the principles. You know, follow the principles. Lead by example. Give up trying to control. Relax. Allow. Visualize. And if you're visualizing to create feeling, that's great. If your visualizing is causing a focus on lack, stop, because you're doing it wrong. And I'll say that all day long. If you're visualizing and you're not creating the feeling that you want to create of having already arrived, having already manifested, then you're just focusing on lack. And that's just going to create more lack. If you focus on what your kids aren't doing, if you focus on the worry, it's only going to create more worry. It's only going to manifest what it is that you don't want. If you're afraid of your daughter and teenage pregnancy, the more you use force, the more you use the power, you try to use power over them, the more they're just very likely going to end up with teenage pregnancy, because they will manifest through you in a way, because you are inspiring, you're interacting with them. Your energy is fundamentally connected with your children because you're around them so much. And if you try to use force, you're going to get a bunch of what you don't want, because that's where your focus is. Your focus is on the lack. Your focus is on what you don't want rather than what you do want. So there's a totally different approach. and I would love to help teach that approach. So if anybody is interested in learning these things in more depth, PM me, we can talk, we can sit down, we can work on these things. If my son wants to, we can throw him in Facebook Live, but you know, he's a kid. He doesn't think what dad does is all that cool. He doesn't really it took me forever just to get the kid to accept me on Instagram, you know, because I'm doing these meditation things. And then there's Shayna. She'll drop some knowledge there for you because he communicates really well with her. That's a good example with the video games. That's very true. Our kids are our teacher. You know, they can set a great example on how to be more free, how to be more imaginative, how to love more, how to use our imagination in a way that we're not using it currently. Okay, so I hope this message came through. I hope that I'm clear in what I have to say. If anybody would like to know more, by all means, message me, come talk to me in any way you can, and I'll be happy to share. I'm great with question and answer, so please ask more questions. And for those questions like the you know, when one partner isn't in alignment, there's a lot that could potentially also be going on there besides just the parenting. Because what I have observed, and I'm not saying that this is the situation, but a lot of times when the parenting styles are different, there's a lot of other energetic connections that are not connecting. So there's a lot of couples who no longer have strong energetic connections, and we see sometimes what can manifest from that. Everything is about connection. Everything is about the exchange of energy. We can have an infinite amount of soulmates. You know, we can connect to anybody, anything on a very deep level. So chances are, if parenting is so different between the two parents, between husband and husband, wife and wife, however you're parenting, if the two people have different parenting styles, different ideas, that's very likely an energetic connection that's not connecting. So there's going to be some dissonance there. There's going to be some tension there. There's going to be some, and that can be worked through. You know, that can be something that we just acknowledge and accept. You know, there's some things that I do that other people don't do, and I just accept that. You know, that's the bent of their nature and their personality. And every child is different. Every situation is different. But that's why we look to the principles, because the principles are a blueprint. We just need to follow the blueprint, and we can do it in our own unique way. There's no one way to parent. There's no one way necessarily to manifest. If visualization boards work for you, that doesn't mean they're going to work for somebody else. You know, this visualization technique doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody just because it worked for one person, but that's the crux of a book. In a book, you can only give this one thing, but when you work with somebody one-on-one, we can really explore. We can find ways that work for you. Just like in martial arts, I use tools. And when I outgrow that tool, I throw it away, or I offer it to somebody else. I say, hey, maybe this tool is good for you. Try it out. Because we're just using tools. I just want people to understand that the law of attraction is a blueprint. It's a principle of the universe. It's how the universe works. When you look at pi, when you look at the golden mean ratio, when you look at all of these geometrical things, you can find out physically how the world and the universe manifests. Circles, spheres. There's a reason that everything seems to take a cylindrical pattern. It takes a circular pattern because that's a principle of the universe. Energy likes to move in circles. You would like, okay, I can speak about quantum physics. Should I just start now? So one basic thing in the term of quantum physics, you have the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So Heisenberg basically hypothesized that there is only a probability that anything will happen. Or won't happen. So let's think about that in terms of law of attraction. And this, I guess, gets to the end of the video. I'm probably going to lose some people, but I'll just say it real quick, and then I'll give more information on this type of thing later. But so you have what's called the probability cloud, and I love giving this example because it's so crystal clear. There's a probability cloud, and let's say that I want to be president of the United States. That's in the probability cloud because the probability cloud is technically infinite. But once I decide with my mind that I want to be president of the United States, I have fundamentally affected the probability cloud. The probability cloud of me being the president has just gone up. Once I focus in on that intention and I visualize it, the probability goes up. And then once I start focusing on the step right before me, and I start, making my connections, and I start my fundraising, and I start my platform, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle says that fundamentally the statistical probability of me manifesting my desire, and Heisenberg didn't use manifesting my desire, I threw that in, but the statistical probability of me affecting the physical universe through my mind is increased just by making the decision. So you can use things like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which is quantum physics. We're talking about the mind affecting the smallest of small, because the quantum level is, in our perspective, very small, but in an actual perspective, it's all synthesis. It's all the same thing. There's an example. I can talk much more about physics, I can talk much more about geometry, I can talk much more about parenting, about business, about manifesting money, because I've been there. I've been doing this for a long damn time, and I'm happy to share. So I'll see you guys later, and I wish you all very well. And if it's okay, I'm just going to sit here for just a second, take a breath. And since I'm holding the phone with one hand, I just wish you guys peace. I wish you guys joy. Operate from a place of peace. You can operate from a place of supreme, ultimate power. There is nothing you can't manifest if you're operating from a place of peace. I will have many more videos. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys next time. I love you. I just had to say that.